Do you think men should be the breadwinners?
I think that there are instances where men should be hunters and gatherers when it comes to like dating and pursuing.
At this point in history, women are becoming more educated than men.
My whole life, I've been trained to be the protector.
Similarly to the reason that you don't want a stay-at-home wife, I wouldn't want a stay-at-home husband.
Zaddy. Figure out what you and your partner want out of life. The way that I see it, the way that we see it is like, it's all one big pool of money.
And there's just all these things that we've been kind of brought up thinking that we have to tear down and unlearn.
Yeah. How do you feel when you are the person that is making more money than your spouse? Do you feel less protected? Do you feel less provided for? Welcome back to the Couples Edition with Allie and Ely.
Today we're going to talk about something we saw on TikTok that sparked an interesting conversation. We'll try playing the video now, and if it doesn't work, check the link in bio. But essentially, this guy was complaining that girls these days, they all are so ambitious and want their own careers, and they're not as passionate about families anymore. So he feels like he's now being too feminine because these women are just out here like with purposes and passions.
Yeah, too much passion.
Yeah, and I thought that was such an interesting topic. And the comments were heinous about people saying like he wanted a husband for himself. Yeah. You know, whatever, that his incubator was broken and, you know.
Because it wanted a life.
Yeah, so it brought up a really interesting discussion, which is that women in today's era have never been more educated, had more opportunities or more chances for success where they don't have to rely on men, and just seeing how some men are interpreting that. And we have a unique perspective on gender roles in our marriage and in our house. So I thought that's where we should start today.
Don't these guys on the internet, usually it's guys on the internet that say this kind of stuff. There's also like a girls like pool that says the opposite, wanting guys to like just make money, take care of life, whatever. But don't these guys like see the internet and see that like women are now like they've been thriving and they've had careers, and the women are in Congress, women are governors, women are
running for president.
Like, I've been missing this. Do they have TV?
Well, what's funny is the same guys that say stuff like this are the same guys that will call women gold diggers. Yeah. And like even on our episodes where we've talked about money, I've been posting some of those shorts on our social media pages. And there's a few clips of me saying like why I think we should merge money. And there's men in the comments being like, of course a woman would say this. She just wants to take his money. Yeah. Which is funny, considering I brought more money into the marriage and I'm the one advocating that we should merge our money. But these misogynistic men have this perspective like, oh, men always have more money. The woman just wants to like steal it. But then they get online saying things like, now women are too ambitious. And it's like, we just can never win. Crazy. So let's talk about some of the stats and also our perspective. So I did a lot of research on the stats around education because I've been hearing different things that women are graduating college more. So I wanted to come with some facts. And there's a lot of different ways this is analyzed in terms of college enrollment, college graduation, et cetera. So
get into it.
I thought the one that was the most interesting was, you know, stats are always a few years behind because the time it takes to collect them, whatever. So the most recent one I could find was 2022, 58% of college students were women compared to 42% men.
Wow,
women,
guys, we gotta get it up. Come on.
Women for over the past 15 years are the dominant majority of gender graduating colleges. Wow. So for the last 15 years, more women are graduating college than men.
How amazing is that?
As well as women are earning more bachelor's degrees, more master's degrees, and more doctorates than men.
What are the guys doing?
So at this point in history, women are becoming more educated than men. Yeah. And if that trend continues into the workforce, because obviously this is like the last 15 years, so once the baby boomers all retire, women will be the most educated group in the workforce in the U.S. Yeah. Which is a really interesting topic.
Oh, they are. Are they not? Is that not?
I didn't have that stat, but it would presumably, if the last 15 years, that's about half or a fourth of the workforce. Okay. Because if you think of the workforce from like age 20 to 60, 15 years is only like a third of that. Fair. So Fair. I don't have the exact numbers, but also interesting with things like the creator economy, which is a multi-$100 billion growing economy. Yeah. It's also dominated by women. Yeah. And it's given women this opportunity to create their own careers as solopreneurs themselves. Yeah. So essentially we're in this decade, in this era where women don't need to rely on men the same way that our parents' generation often did, where I think it was in the late 70s where women got access to credit cards to have their own banks without men. Yeah. And now we just have so much more freedom. So women have so much more opportunity, independence than they've ever had. Wow. But obviously that's rifling the cultural gender norms. So what are your thoughts on all that?
I think it's great. I think it's amazing. I mean, anyone that thinks that women are too focused on careers or too focused on growing their own wealth, status, ambition, I think it's just like ridiculous, because if you think about all the brain power that's out there, and actually women have invented a lot of some of the world's most revolutionary inventions, but then they get coded with men's names who are collaborators or even like subordinates.
Like the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you think about all the brain power out there that exists in the world, if you're only using half of it because only men are able to go to school or only men are able to get these fine jobs, well, then you're only half as good as society will ever be. But when you see the other side that is starting to rise up by their bootstraps and do what society says they shouldn't be doing, I think they unlock so much value for all of society. So it's ridiculous for people to think that women should just like stay in a specific box.
It seems, I guess there's two sides of the equations that, as you're talking, it made me think. Like, one, studies show that diverse teams perform better, bar none. Yeah. So not only gender, but also race. Yeah. So having more women on leadership, executive teams, whatever, companies will perform better. Yeah. That guy from Shark Tank, the white bald guy. What's his name? O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary. I saw a TikTok recently where he said his team did a study of his investment portfolio, and over the last, I think it was like 15 years or something, his women investments have significantly outperformed his male run investments. Yeah. And he was saying, like, an example was that women are usually more conservative with forecasting, yet they hit their forecasts almost 100% of the time, whereas men way over forecast, and so therefore hit their forecast like 60% of the time. Yeah. And he was just saying, like, it's so interesting because we really are such a good balance together. Yeah. And so it's just unfortunate that, Yeah,
it's unfortunate that there are people out there that still behave that way. I think like back in the old days, like, I don't know, hundreds of years ago, like, I get it. There were some societal standards out there that women even accepted and women preferred. And not saying that it was right or wrong. That's just kind of how the world works. But to live in a society now where, this guy is probably buying cars and buying clothes from companies where females are executives, and he's kind of worried that his wife might be the next one or his girlfriend might be the next one. That is pretty sad, right? So, I think it's pretty ridiculous. And I think that, guys like that should probably reassess how they think about women's position in society. Yeah,
it sounds like he's the type of person that just wants a baby maker and somebody to stay home and manage the household, which is exactly what you told me you didn't want.
Absolutely, yeah. It doesn't make sense. Because if you think about it, there's two people in one household, which means that there's going to be a baby at some point. But just like within the household itself, there's a lot of work to do to maintain the house. So why would it make sense that only you did that, right? Or why would it make sense that only I went to work? And if we have to pay rent in a very expensive city, it would be awesome if we both made money together and we were able to enjoy that and like live our lives together. But more importantly, I want any woman or women, I think you should naturally have some kind of drive towards a bigger purpose, and not saying that taking care of a home and a family isn't a big purpose. If that is your calling, if that is your lane, absolutely like stay in it and like enjoy that. But I don't think it would have been fair to have met someone like you that is as talented, also as educated as you, and then put you in the box and say, hey, you've got all these skill sets. Awesome. You're great. But I actually just prefer if you just do laundry. Or I just prefer if you do the dishes. That's ridiculous. No, you should run the finances because you majored in finance. You should run that. You should, talk about business opportunities and investments. You should be doing all those things, because for it all to fall on me, I mean, that's just pretty ridiculous when we can put both of our brains together, right?
Do you think men should be the breadwinners?
Absolutely not. I don't think that there should. I don't think that there is a should or shouldn't in this situation. I think the first thing is like figure out what you and your partner want out of life. If you want someone to make a lot of money, figure out who that's going to be, right? But also, no, I don't think men should just be the breadwinners. I think women can also be the breadwinner. But at the same time, like in a relationship, the way that I see it, the way that we see it is like it's all one big pool of money. It's all one big pool of wealth, of assets, of resources. Like when you get divorced, it's not just money you're splitting apart, right? Or whenever you die, it's not just money you're giving away. So there's so many things that I think because they're shared, you should be open with both of you creating that value and also sharing it together. You know what I mean?
So would it hurt your ego if our entire life I made more money than you?
No, not at all.
You wouldn't feel less than?
Why? I mean, for me personally, like my value isn't like in the money, right? I wasn't born on this earth and taught and trained and raised that like you are the value of a specific dollar of money. And once someone is above that, then you are below them. That just doesn't make sense to me. Therefore, no, because at the end of the day, if you made a lot of money and I made a lot of money, but you made more, that's awesome, right? And then if I make more, that's even better. And then if you make more, so for me, it's like, I hope that you make more money than me, but you should also hope that I make more money than you. Therefore, like we're always just like outgrowing each other, but we're sharing it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think you would actually be stoked if I made more money.
Well, yeah.
Because it would like give us, as we talked about on a prior episode, just give us more freedom to do all the things we want. Like we don't really care where the money's coming from.
Exactly.
As long as it's there for us to use.
I mean, well, think about it this way, right? We are right now in our entrepreneurial journey. And since we've been on this journey, like you've made more entrepreneur money than I have. And I've been on it now for only a few months. But still, think about how ridiculous it would be for me to say, I hope that you don't make that much because I'm going to be hurt and I'm going to be bruised because you made too much money. And therefore, don't make that money, wait on me, and we might end up on the street, but that might make me feel better. That's just crazy.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
You know, that's crazy. So to me, yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's a team thing.
But do you think it's in men's DNA, this urge to be a provider, or is that just something that society has created?
I think a lot of it is societal driven. I think men may have a DNA of like being a provider and a protector. I think like some of that is like nature versus nurture. Obviously because like testosterone, right? Like just that in itself. But I feel like when it comes to like money and wealth and like career, I don't think that like, you know, men are born with this DNA that, you know, it forces them to need to be first above women per se. I think it's society, right? Society are pressured into this. Men are usually characterized as like the winner, the better than, the stronger, the wealthier, the protector, whatever it is, right? So I think because of that, all these characters are ingrained into men as boys, even their dads, they're superheroes. Therefore, I think naturally you start to build this ideology that like, yeah, I should be first, even when it comes to finances against my partner, I should be first.
So you think it's mostly society driven?
100%.
What about the notion of being like hunters and gatherers? Because I feel like on prior episodes when we were talking about dating and pursuit, you were very big on men should be the hunters and the gatherers.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I was listening to a podcast earlier and they talked about how like before money existed, it was food. Like people traded on food. So yeah, I think like when you have a kid and when you have a family around, I think at a very young age, kids biologically need their mothers more than their fathers. Therefore, I think it makes sense for their fathers to go hunt and to go get things so the family could like eat. So I think like back then it made a lot of sense, but we don't live in those days anymore. So, and we don't use food as a means to like trade for things and trade for time. We use dollars, right? Therefore, yeah, I think that there are instances where men should be hunters and gatherers when it comes to like dating and pursuing and, those sorts of things in a way, in my opinion. But I think when it comes to like money and wealth, I think there is definitely like, there's no advantage that, men should have or no emotional attachment I think that men should have towards earning more than their partner.
Let's take the same notion, but a little bit different. Let's say that I was like a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't even know if they have colored belts in that sport, but something like that where I'm just like I'm a ninja.
My cousin Jesse does jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Let's say I'm like a black belt in jiu-jitsu and I'm like one of those female superheroes on TV where I could just take out any trained assassin.
Yeah.
Would you feel threatened is me as the protector. So let's say we're somewhere really scary. Maybe we're crossing through gang territory or something crazy.
Yeah.
Would you feel more safe walking next to me? Or would you feel threatened that I was more capable than you?
I'd feel 10 times safer. I mean, to me, you know how I think about this? So Beyonce has this bodyguard. He's famous now, Julius. Yeah. And like, let's just ask ourselves a question. Do we think that Jay-Z feels offended that another man is protecting his wife? Or another way to put it is there are also like female bodyguards, right? And they're great bodyguards. And so it's like if Justin Bieber had a female bodyguard, I don't know if he does or if he doesn't. Do we think that like Justin Bieber would fire her because she was female and she protected him that one time and now he feels inferior? I think that's ridiculous. So
I think it's different though in a dating relationship. So I think your Jay-Z example is probably more fitting.
Okay, fair.
But even in that case, that just seems like a practicality thing. Like even if Jay-Z was trained for martial arts or whatever, he's not with her all the time.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say, ultimately, if you and I were dating and I wasn't as big as you and you were, a really strong athlete in a very like combative sport, and you were able to like fend for yourself, I think I would think that was so badass. And I think I would definitely have to get used to it, right? Because my whole life I've been trained to be the protector.
Yeah.
So then I'd have to undo some of the thinkings and some of the the awarenesses that I have naturally, because I have to be aware that I am freaking dating a ninja black belt jiu-jitsu specialist. So I don't need to like always walk into a room first to make sure that there aren't any danger, right? Maybe I don't have to walk on the side of the road.
If we're sleeping,
maybe you can walk on the side of the road and you can get hit first.
If we're sleeping in bed and somebody breaks into the house in that scenario, would you send me or would you get up and do it?
I think we do it together, right? Because we're protecting the house, not any individual. And so and even now, if something
effort.
A team effort. Even now with my strength.
Even if I was more trained though, shouldn't I be then protecting you?
No, we should both, because you're not protecting me. You're protecting the house.
The house is empty.
Sure, the house. Okay, fine. Let's assume someone was coming after me. I'm no, we would both fight him. Why? Because two's better than one. It just makes sense. So if someone had walked into the house, you know what? This is a scenario. If someone walked into the house right now, I'm bigger than you, and you are in your current state.
Not a ninja.
And not a ninja. I think it would be ridiculous if you just sat in some corner and did nothing.
For sure. I'd be looking for a weapon to hit him over the head with once you got him pinned.
Exactly. Do something, right? And we'll play roles. I'm going to pin him because I'm bigger and I can probably hold him down, but I can't pin him and go across the house and get a knife or get a bat, right? Yeah. So you get the knife and I'll pin him.
Teamwork, baby.
Exactly. But in movies, you always see the girl, usually it's the girl, I don't know why, obviously society, she's always she's in the back, not the gun's right there. Grab the gun, Sarah. Grab the gun. And she just oh my God. It's ridiculous. So no, grab the gun. Grab the, I don't know if you can say gun on YouTube, but grab the weapon and I will hold them down. Okay.
So if we're in bed and somebody breaks in, I'll let you go first while I go get the weapon and then meet you. That's what we're agreeing on?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But we're doing it together. If you stay in bed, we're going to have a talk the next morning. I might be all bladed up, but we're going to have a talk. Let me reverse the question back to you. Society has told you that you should be taken care of and protected. How do you feel when you are the person that is making more money than your spouse? How does that make you feel? Or do you feel less protected? Do you feel less provided for? Yeah. How would a woman feel that?
It doesn't bother me. I think when we first started dating and got together, you were making less, and it only bothered me because I felt like based on the work you were doing and the amount of degrees you had, that you should have been making way more. So it was more of a practical thing to me, where I'm like, it just doesn't make sense that you're not making more money given your skills and the work you're putting in. But no, it doesn't make me feel any sort of way making more. I wouldn't care. We're both trying to build businesses, and if my business happens to be the breadwinner forever, I would be thrilled just because my business is thriving and maybe your business is thriving too, but the just revenue potential isn't the same. Then I'm like, cool, we're both thriving. We both have successful businesses. It wouldn't bother me to make more.
What about that show, The Perfect Couple, where the woman is an amazing author. She's written so many books. She's a huge personality, and she's wealthy.
Is this the one in the Hamptons?
The one in the Hamptons. Oh, okay. And the husband is just kind of like, I don't know, maybe her assistant, like doesn't really have a career, not really a stay-at-home dad because they have the wealth to have resources and support, but he's just kind of like there, and he's happy. He's like doing his own thing. Like, I don't know.
That would bother me.
Yeah, why?
I think similarly to the reason that you don't want a stay-at-home wife, I wouldn't want a stay-at-home husband. Zaddy. Just because I think we really understand the drive and the motivation that we both have. Yeah. And I think we kind of thrive on that together. I think it would be difficult coming home super ambitious and passionate about what I'm working on. Yeah. And my spouse is just kind of like maybe negative about it, like, oh, you're working too hard. Because I think even in my
no, let's say I'm not negative about it. I'm just like, I'm supporting you. You're thriving, and I'm just supporting you, right? Or another example to show you where Joe is kind of like sits back, has a little bookstore.
That's so true.
But his now wife from London, she's just successful, and he just lives around. He just
That's true.
He's not negative.
That might not bother me,
right? Because you can bring all that ambition home, sit on your couch, and I'll rub your feet with nice baby oil.
Let me put it this way. I will be happy as long as you're doing what you feel called to, and that is your purpose. Yeah. If you were not pursuing your purpose and doing things that were lazy or unambitious, like even if it makes no money, that would bother me. Yeah. But I think as long as you're trying to every day get better and pursue that path, then that's good enough for me. Obviously, I hope it makes money, particularly in this season where we're both trying to hit a revenue target. Exactly. But like if my business was thriving on its own, then no, I don't think it would bother me.
Okay. What about, do you think that most women in your age group and demographic, like city girls who have had corporate careers,
yes, it would bother them.
Do you think so?
Yeah. I think, I can't speak for everybody, sure, but I think a lot of conversations I've had, like in general, actually, I saw a study on this. It was a podcast I was listening to, and they were saying that the majority of women want to date men who are more successful than them. Yeah. This is when I first started hearing that women were graduating college more, because they were saying the majority of women want that, but the problem is that more women are now more educated than men, so the pool of more educated men is getting smaller and smaller, so it's becoming more realistic for women to have these expectations. Yeah. So it's just like a misalignment of what's available versus what people want. Yeah. And I don't know what the core is of why that is. Maybe, again, these societal expectations that men are supposed to be the providers, that even though we're really successful, we also want our men to be really successful as well. Yeah. I think in Sex and the City, there's a character, her name's Miranda. She's a lawyer. And men are constantly threatened when they're dating and they find out she's a lawyer because they might be something like less than a lawyer. Yeah. And they constantly feel threatened. So there was this one episode where she introduces herself as a flight attendant. Yeah. And the dude was thrilled.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, she just had this moment of like, oh, I can't even be my true self because I'm too successful for men.
Yeah. You know what? I will add this, though. And this is, I think, like probably a very vulnerable twist on this, is it's much easier for me to say what I'm saying now because I've achieved different levels of success, to the point where I'm probably going to be more successful on paper than most of the girls that I date or talk to. It isn't because there aren't enough successful people. It's simply just like there just aren't enough people on earth with 3 degrees that have worked corporate careers that I have. They're
Soft
just
flex.
Like, just do what?
Soft flex.
Oh, no. Okay.
3 degrees.
Well, so that's just like, again, that's why I said on paper, right? Because you meet a lot of people who, like, on paper, they don't have a college degree, but they're multimillionaire social media creators or multimillionaire,
Mark
whatever.
Zuckerberg didn't even graduate college.
Yeah, exactly.
Emma Grede dropped out of high school.
Exactly. And so I think it's much easier for
Eli
me.
Nabashosi has 3 degrees.
He does, doesn't he? What an amazing man that guy is. Wow. Lucky. So anyways, it's much easier because I think, like, in one of our episodes, I did say that part of the reason why I focused on, like, getting good education was because I recognized that was an important societal expectation, even in dating, right?
That you could also fall back on.
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember, I think I mentioned this in one of our podcasts, that, like, I remember whenever I was in college, a lot of the girls were into the finance bros. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know what like you did in finance. I thought they were just a bunch of like bean counters, right? I didn't know what finance and accounting was. Mm-hmm. And I remember, wow, a lot of the girls were like into the finance guys and into the business guys. Like, I wonder why. Like, they're not that much good looking. Like, they're not even good looking at all. Mm-hmm. And I understood that like they were doing the investment calculation. And so like, I'd be lying.
They were adding up how much those Pilates and purses cost.
Exactly. I'd be lying to you if I told you that wasn't a factor into like my decision, because I kind of knew that like it was expected of me to be more successful, to be
improve
an attractive, yeah, exactly. If I was quote unquote less successful, I think that I probably would feel a little bit like, I don't know. I think I probably would. Maybe not threatened. Threatened isn't the right word. I think it'd be more like, I don't know. I think I would feel a little like less accomplished in a way, because I think like there is a societal thing, and I think while I went on this whole like gospel preaching about how we're all equal and all one team, I think I'd have to undo a lot of that societal understanding of like men being able to share things with women, not just like have most of it. If that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think something that episode we did with all the girls kind of pointed out is we often share things from our perspective as like, I don't know, sometimes I think it comes off as like, this is right. But what it really is it's right for us. Like, we are both highly ambitious, motivated people. So we want to be with somebody that understands that drive and that hustle. But like, if you wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not what we wanted. And I think going kind of to your point about society's expectations is that there's so much to unlearn. And we've talked about this kind of on some other episodes, but society just puts all these thoughts in our head subconsciously, like our own biases, especially like growing up in the US. This book I read called How to Be an Anti-Racist. Something that was really interesting to me, just using this as an example of bias, is the author, a black man, was saying that growing up in the US, there's so much race bias just existing that even as a black person, he had to unlearn being biased against people of his own skin color because it was just so ingrained in our society that darker skin was less than. And so he had to unlearn it himself. And I think that's such a great example of so many things in our society that are just woven into our fabric, and the things that we pick up on, like even in other episodes we were talking about engagement rings and how it's now being woven into American culture that like you need this big engagement ring even if you can't afford it. And there's just all these things that we've been kind of brought up thinking that we have to tear down and unlearn.
Something else that I think was a big part of like why I believe in walk and think the way that I do as far as this topic is because I think when you go to a college campus, I think like your eyes open up to the fact that like women can major in finance, women can major in law or go to law school. I think when you see that, I think it does open up your eyes and it changes what society tells you for sure. Because I remember being on campus and honestly just being surprised that there were a lot of like female engineers. One of my friends, Carla, is an engineer, mechanical engineer. There just aren't that many female mechanical engineers, right, like in the world. So when I saw that she was a mechanical engineer, I was surprised. Now, if I saw a mechanical engineer student at Berkeley, if I went to visit campus, I wouldn't be surprised because I've seen enough Carlas, right? So I think that guys who might have this like, not dilemma, but this these thoughts around like women being, being focused on their career, I think they just also haven't been exposed enough to some of those things, and which is earlier why I was saying like, aren't you seeing these things? And I think it's I don't want to say harsh, or I don't want to like give them a way out, but sometimes it isn't enough to just see people on TV doing these things, because everyone on TV or everyone like on television or on media is like an idol, a character. They're like a one-off. But I think you sometimes like just need to like go through the process of like seeing women doing things that you're not traditionally you're not used to them traditionally doing. I think that opens up your eyes. And it sucks that some people just haven't done it, but it's not a way out for them though.
Well, it's interesting too, just how much bias is ingrained in so much of it. Because if you think about successful women, a common story that they have, or that you'll see narratives about them online, is like, oh, they slept their way to the top, or there's all these excuses on why a woman is successful. And even if they can justify to themselves why she's successful, like I remember we were having a conversation with an older person, and they were saying like how unqualified, this is not meant to be political, this is just analysis. They were mentioning how unqualified Kamala Harris was. Mm-hmm. And we looked at them and we were like, unqualified? The woman has held almost every public office available. Yeah. Like
her resume is stacked.
Her resume is stacked with government positions.
Absolutely.
And it's like, what do you mean she's unqualified? Donald Trump hasn't had a single governmental office prior to being president. And so it's just like, even the bias, like nobody ever said that about him. Yet a woman running for president, it's like, oh, she slept. I think there was a narrative that she slept with the mayor of San Francisco and that was how she got elected to the state public defender's office. There was a narrative, like just all these different narratives about her not being qualified. And it was just like, dang, women, no matter how educated and how qualified she was, it still wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because whenever men with untraditional or non-traditional backgrounds land a job, or not even a job, land like a really high position, they're always looked at as like the unicorn. Like John did it and he didn't even go to school, or you know, Jim did it and he doesn't even know this industry or whatever, right? But when a female reaches that kind of success, they're like that as like, well, what did you do to get here?
Completely different standards. You know? And even like with aggression, if you're in the corporate office and a woman is being too direct, she's considered aggressive, whereas a man is being direct and he has leadership. He has great leadership. And like there's just so much different bias. But like this episode wasn't necessarily to talk about all the bias between gender, more about like how it relates to that in marriages.
I'll add more color to kind of like my background as well too. Like I have 4 sisters who are all older than me, so I've been used to like, 1, authority from women, but 2, all of my sisters went to college, graduated, and all have like technical careers. Like STEM careers, like, or at least STEM degrees. That is 1. 2, for whatever reason, most of my bosses in corporate America have been females. Don't know why. Most of them have, and I've had great relationships with them. So I think my perspective is definitely shaped by my background, and I've seen women do these things, and I'm not surprised, and I encourage it, and I think we all should be encouraging it.
Yeah. So back to our relationship. How do we view gender in our household and in our marriage?
Well, I mean, I think we definitely view it more when it relates to like emotional things, and probably even like physical things per se. Not per se, I mean, really, right? It's like, hey, if there's something heavy to lift, you know, am I lifting it because I'm stronger? Yeah, for sure. But am I also lifting it because like I'm the guy? Yeah, but you also do a lot of like lifting, you know, on your own. Like those physical things, they might seem minor, but like emotional things, I think like we do recognize like we have different emotional biological makeups, right, with chemicals and hormones and all those different things. So we factor those things in, right, into how we deal with each other and how we walk around the house and behave. But when it comes to like chores and management and maintenance and upkeep, like those sorts of things, I think we put the best person in the right seat. Right, like I've mentioned this before, like you're really good at finance, and so it just makes a lot of sense for you to do finances. If I did finance, I might score 85 versus like you score 95, right? So it's like, why would we settle for 85 when we can get 95? And it just makes a lot more sense. And you know, when it comes to planning as well, like you do the planning, heck, you do everything. You do all the planning, you do all the finances.
Because I'm more type A.
Sure, yeah, you're more type A. You know, and I think like that to me like makes a lot of sense for our household.
Yeah, so understanding who's the best person for the job, regardless of gender, but just skills and abilities, what makes the most sense to maximize our households.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think...
And we share a lot of things, though. I think something that I'll mention that we do is like, we share a lot of responsibilities. And I think like the past few months, you've probably like primarily done finances all on your own. In the past, we used to do it together. But when it comes to like family planning and like thinking and strategizing, even like picking an apartment, sometimes even like furnishing it, like those sorts of things, like we're sharing a lot of it. And at least like you're asking me for ideas or I'm asking you for ideas. It's rarely ever one person does it and the other person just like sees it come to life per se. So I think like we try to share those responsibilities, so it's never like well, you do it, you're the girl, and I do it because I'm the boy.
Yeah, that's never been said in our house.
Yeah.
I think something that really helped us get there too was doing our premarital counseling book, where I think it had an entire chapter on like household gender roles and who should take out the trash and who should cook more and who's going to pay the bills and whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that was a great starting point for us to talk about what did we experience growing up and what do we want in our household. And I think it was around then that we decided and realized like we don't really believe in that. It makes more sense to us to put the best person in the right seat.
Yeah, exactly. And all in all, I think that people should do what's best for them. Like we've always said, our experience isn't designed to be coded over everyone's lives.
Of course, it's what's best for us.
Yeah, do what's best for you, but also recognize that there is power and value in multiplying efforts, multiplying brains, multiplying ideas, regardless of gender. So if you can find ways to like incorporate a lot of that, I just think it's a lot better.
Statistically speaking, it is.
Statistically speaking, it absolutely is, right? But then I get it. There are some people that are going to like do a hard divide around like, man makes the money, woman takes care of the house, and they're an amazing couple, amazing household. That works for you,
great.
Yeah, that works. It's great. Invite us for dinner, and we'd love to hang out.
So that's our opinion on should men be breadwinners and all the nuances about gendered roles in the household. Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. What do you guys do at your house, or what do you want in your future marriage? Make sure you like, subscribe, and let us know what you want us to talk about next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.
We're out.